So here's the precursor to the interview, the precursor to conversation, the precursor to questions and answers and everything that's being discussed. We're not perfect. We don't have it all figured out. We don't have all the answers. We're learning as we go. Nothing has been perfected, right? And we're still working on things.
Still working on it.
And we would say we've got a lot to learn. We probably have more to learn than we have learned, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the precursor to this conversation, this interview, is that we don't profess to know the answers. We're just taking the opportunity to share a little bit of our story, and as my dad would put it, putting in our 2 cents. This is our 2 cents worth, because that's probably all it's worth, is about 2 cents. So
Maybe one.
maybe one. She's worth 1.5 cents. I'm worth 0.5 cent. So, right? As far as our opinions are concerned.
Yeah.
Right. So, all right, let's get into it. So, we're Jeff and Michelle Courtney. We've been married how many years?
28.
Right, good. She got
He's
it.
the keeper of our marriage time.
Right. So 28 years this June, being June of 2019. 28 years we've been together. We have 3 great kids. Not just saying that because we're being recorded. We truly believe we have 3 great kids.
We do.
Our oldest son is 24. Our middle son is 22. And our daughter, our caboose, is 14.
She keeps us young.
Right. So that's our family makeup. We've had we've had 2 dogs, and the kids would say that the dog we have currently is the favorite of the family, and I would not
Some
argue
days
that
he
point.
really is.
So yeah, so that makes up our family, and if I were to go back to how the whole family began, how things started, we were 21. I was 21, I believe, when we met, and we dated for 6 months, I believe it is. And after that 6 months, I realized immediately that this was the woman that I wanted to marry. And so after a 6 month, couple points there. After 6 months, realized that was the path I wanted to marry Michelle. And then less than a year later, we actually got married. So in less than, from the time we met each other to the time we got married, was less than 2 years. And so because of that, we waited a few years before having our kids. We waited probably about 3 years and felt like we knew each other well enough but to get married, but needed to get to know each other a little bit more. So raised in a very loving, caring family home. Many of my friends considered us to be the all-American family. We ate dinner together, we spent the weekends doing things together. I grew up, the family had a summer home, and so we had weekends spent at the summer home, a lot of family time and things like that. Had a fairly good childhood, and at the age of 17, actually I think I was 16, learned that my parents were not getting along. We're looking to separate, work things out, and by the time I was 17, they had decided to divorce. And I think I was a junior in high school when that occurred. So by my second semester of my junior year, my parents had divorced, and I did not take that well. I took it personal. To some extent, I felt it was my fault, even though I was told it wasn't. But I didn't grow up seeing my parents argue. My parents never argued in front of me. And so, having not seen them argue, I assumed that meant it was something else. Something else caused the divorce. And that something else had to have been myself or my sister. And that was my perception, the way I took it. In any event, did not like it, didn't sit well with me, and decided to really not care too much of anything after that, and moved out. Moved out at the age of 17, finished up high school, kind of in and out of my home, my mom's home, my dad's home, and yeah.
But you're like the firstborn son.
Yeah,
and
oh, and I have a
only-
younger sister.
And he has a
I have
sister, so your
5
family
years younger.
dynamics was just you and
The
your
two of
sister.
us, right.
So, yeah, so I grew up a little different. Let's see, I came from a family of 6 kids, and middle child. It's okay, middle child, is good. We all know our own friends there. Grew up as a middle kid, and I think that was with my parents. We're very strict, especially because our 2 brothers were older, and then there was 4 girls. So I think there was a lot of rules put on us as girls growing up. You can't go out, couldn't spend the night at friends' houses. So that was a little difficult. So their parenting was a little more strict, and I think we bring that from both families into how we decide that we're going to parent our kids. So.
What was your dad's saying when you wanted to sleep at someone else's house?
My dad would say if I asked to spend the night at someone's house, you don't need to spend the night there, you have your own bed. So that was his.
His reason for you not needing to
Right.
sleep anywhere else.
Right. I mean, that was when my dad would work nights, then maybe my mom would let us sleep at a friend's house. But yeah, so things were very, very strict. We had a lot of rules, and especially being girls. So I think both of us brought some of what we grew up with into raising our own kids and figuring that out.
Yeah. And when you think about it, you learn how to parent in a way by how you were parented.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't take steps to learn anything different, that's your source. That's the only thing that you can reflect on, is how you see other families act, or how your parents acted, how they responded, how they treated you. You've learned from that, and you tend to repeat that. If you've got other healthy relationships around you and a close family, you may see the interaction of aunts and uncles and things like that. But if you don't have those positive influences around you when you're growing up, you may not have the best understanding of how to parent, or even relate as a husband and wife if you've not had a good example of that growing up either. So yeah, those circumstances definitely play into how you relate as a couple initially, and how you may raise your family as well. Again, unless you seek other opportunities to learn better ways to do things.
Can you talk about challenges when children came? How did the transition between being together, you said it was 2 or 3 years when you got married.
Right.
Here you are, focused on each other's, fulfilling each other's needs. Now our children, how did it work for you? How did you switch?
Well, even before that, even before the kids came into the picture, we were 2 separate individuals having done things different ways, right? So I was, again, for most practical sense, I was on my own at the age of 17. So I had lived in my own apartment. I had bounced around at friends' houses, back home for a bit, things like that. But then ultimately I moved out and was living on my own. I was working to provide for myself, trying to go to school. School wasn't working out because I was too tired from working to really put forth the effort. It's probably an excuse, but quite honestly, I went to, and I'm talking after high school, I finished up high school, but then pursued college. Friends went off to college. I went to a local junior college and found that, okay, I'd go spend all this time and effort at school and I might get a grade, and the school cost me money to go to, and I was on my own and had to pay bills and feed myself and pay for a vehicle and things like that. So I opted to work full-time and not go to school. So again, I'd been on my own, at the time we met, I had been on my own 4 years and kind of established a routine, a way that I wanted to live, things like that. And again, Michelle, having been raised the way she had a
Yeah.
life of her own in the way she lived and what her expectations were. So now you have two
Yeah.
people coming together trying to figure out different not lifestyles, but how do you make this work, right? Especially only knowing each other for a year and a half, 2 years, and then getting married.
Yeah, there was a lot of growing up to do, and then all of a sudden, when you have kids, what do you do? How do you do that? So we had to figure out a way to what he believed in and how he was raised and what I was taught and the way I was raised, and really make that work for our family. And so, yeah, I think, you know, my parents were very strict. His were, I don't know.
Middle
would
of
you
the
say?
road. They were strict when they needed to be,
Yeah.
but they were also very free as well.
Yeah. So for me, in my culture, as a girl, as a female, we were not allowed to leave the house unless we got married first. So now that I was married and we had our first child, I think we had, you know, when they're young, when they're babies, you don't really discipline them, but we definitely had different ways of doing things. And I think we found, as long as we talked about that and figured out what we were going to do together,
Yeah.
I think that was different.
Could you talk about it? If young couples are listening to you and they face their challenges, they just can't come to agreement, what would you tell them? How did you overcome all these things and stayed together
Well,
as a young couple with
Well,
all these
The
differences?
first thing that comes to mind for me is, no, but the first thing that comes
Yeah.
to mind for me is we didn't do it alone,
Yeah.
right? So
We
because
couldn't
of
have done
because
it
of the
alone.
church family that we
Sure.
have, and the structure of the church that we belonged to that had, we called them house churches at the time. You were in these small groups and you met on a regular weekly basis with this group. I mean, it was a commitment. It was every Sunday evening for 2 hours,
Yeah.
and you were in these groups with other couples just like you. I think we've got a baby picture. We were considered the pregnancy house church at one time because I think we've got a picture of 6 kids
Yeah, all
on a
babies
couch
lined
at
up.
one time,
Yeah.
all babies. And so for us, we had that, right? We were walking through all of this together with
Yeah,
these other
other
couples.
That's
and we
important.
would, yeah, and we would
Yeah.
bounce ideas off of each other, or we're struggling with this, how are you doing this, what are you doing? And nobody had the answers, but it was great to know that as you were struggling with someone, you weren't the only one struggling with it. And everyone was just trying to do the best they could. But there was also a comfort level in sharing. I mean, Michelle would call me out on things in front of the group and say, you know, Jeff did this week and we can't get beyond it. We've tried to talk through it, we're arguing about it, and we're not settled on it, you know. And we're looking to the group to help us. What,
So
you know,
key
what
is
do we
the
do?
church and mentors.
Well, it was just, yeah.
Open
Other
conversations.
couples,
Yeah,
sure, walking
couples-
with other people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then in that setting, there was also kind of a senior leader, you know, I mean, house church leaders that tended to be a more seasoned couple, elder couple that may have kids older or same age, but they had gone through some of
Yeah,
these things as
right.
well. So, yeah, for us, that was really key.
Yeah, I think for me, what I always tell new moms is I always tell them, husbands cannot read your mind. You know, like they don't know what you want. Like they come home from work and you are so exhausted from changing the baby's diaper, from being up all night, and they'll come in tired from work, and sometimes they go sit on the couch. The baby's crying. You're trying to get dinner going. So what do? We get mad at them. So we get mad at them because they should know to come in here and help with the baby, but really they don't.
That you need a break.
That we need, yeah, that we need a break. Really, you have to communicate with your husbands and say, when you get home, please just give me 15, 20 minutes. I just need some either alone time, or can you watch the baby while I make dinner?
Right.
So I remember Jeff always did that because he learned that. We were taught that.
Right.
And sometimes really, they don't know. Men don't know. They don't think the same way that we do. So if you need help because you're packing up your diaper bag to get out the door to go somewhere, just say, hey honey, can you grab the bottle? Can you help me with the baby? Because really they can't read our minds. I've tried. They can't do it.
Right. No, that's true.
Yeah.
And
So
again, this
communication.
reflects
Yeah, yeah.
back to, again, that group.
Yeah.
Because all of the people in that group wanted to do their best,
Mhm.
right? Wanted to not have a baby, not that a baby destroys the relationship, but it can
Right.
come between
Sure.
the two of you when you have different views on how to do things.
Mhm.
Or, I mean, we're all selfish. So I want time on my own, she wants time on her own, and you got this baby that's demanding of both of your time. So, but again, the key piece with this was we had this group, this small group that wanted to learn more. So we sought out information, not just learning from each other, not just learning from this mentor couple, but then also seeking out what other studies are out there, right? And we did studies, and not everybody in the group agreed with the studies, right? I think of the EZO studies, right? It was the EZOs, was Raising Kids God's Way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so we did this study, and I mean, it started out from toddler, newborn toddler, and basically gave really structured steps on things to do to help create a schedule in the baby, which then freed up time for us.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we knew at this time we can almost guarantee that we're going to be able to put the baby down for a nap.
Right.
And then have that time either to ourselves
Right.
or for us to go do separate things or something together.
Coach time.
Pass out for 3 hours, 2 hours, take a nap, something. But anyway,
Sure.
there was structure created.
Well, you're not
because of that.
guessing on what the baby wants
Right.
or what should I be doing, because as a new parent,
Right.
what do you do with this baby? And it's scary. I mean, it was scary. We were so young.
Mhm.
At any age, if it's your first child, I mean, yeah, it is scary, and that helped us along. But it also allowed us to have some time for each other, which is very important.
Right.
You need time together. It was called couch time.
Yeah, that was actually a
Yeah.
principle
Yeah.
in the study that we did.
Yeah.
Was obviously when a child is old enough to be up and be interactive and all of that and be fighting for your attention, always wanting your attention. The idea was to either they would have playpen time or crib time,
Yeah.
right? Or when they were older, you would say, okay, you can play here on the rug, and you'd give them some toys to play with, but they weren't allowed to come to the couch and interrupt, right? And so you're not shooing them away, but you're explaining to them when they're at an age to understand that this is our time.
important.
This
Yeah,
is our
yeah.
time. And so when we're done having our time, then you'll get your time with one of us or both of us, whatever the case may be.
Sure.
So you were teaching them that, and you think that they're going to react like they're being pushed off and feel not abandoned, but just kind of not a part of things. But they actually react differently in understanding that this is important. And when they see their mom and dad relating in a healthy way, that actually strengthens their own self-confidence
Yeah.
about the setting that they're growing up
Yeah.
in.
So after a while,
Yeah.
even our firstborn
Yeah.
would say, "Oh, it's couch time! It's couch
Yeah,
time!"
yeah. And
then
now that
as we
they're
got
older, they'll say, "You guys need some couch time."
Go
Yeah,
get some coffee.
Go get some coffee and have some couch time. You guys need to go have some couch time.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but it's funny how something that routine as they were growing up, they remember, and they will say now as we're older, "Why don't you guys go have couch time?"
Yeah.
So it
Yeah,
was a
they
good thing to
recognize
do.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
seems like you emphasize family time as such an important tool, element in growing up for our children. Now moving forward, how about when they went to school? Remember that transition?
The transitions of the kids growing up, especially with the boys first. So the boys were only 22 months apart from each other when we had them.
Busy.
So
Busy,
they're
busy.
less than 2 years apart from each other. So you've got the 3-year-old and 5-year-old, or at some age. And now, just the interaction there between the two of them, there's always this sense that the 3-year-old is as old as the 5-year-old. You almost assume, or expect the same things from the younger sibling that the older sibling's doing when they're that close in age. And you have to force yourself to remember, wait a minute, this one's 2 years behind. He's not at the same age, he's not at the same
And
maturity,
he's
not
second
at
born,
the same
characteristics.
very different, very different.
So
The
you
firstborn
didn't
grew up-
treat different the same way kids.
Well, yeah,
Every kid is
no,
different.
we probably made the mistake in trying to treat them the same
Oh
way,
yeah,
but
we made our own mistakes.
yeah, we
did it
definitely
first.
did that.
And then we realized along the way that it wasn't working. The same thing
Yeah.
we did for the first one doesn't necessarily work for the second or
Right.
the third or the fourth.
Right.
So our guidelines, what we felt like were the same, but as far as each individual child, it has to be a little different.
Right.
So
So yeah, I mean, there's so much. I mean, you talk about the protective mom
no.
not wanting the kids to go beyond the edge of the driveway on their big wheels, on their scooters, whatever you want to call it. And then you've got the dad who understands that for a boy, he has this sense of wanting to be adventurous, wanting to know what goes beyond the driveway, right? So you've got a young boy who can see beyond the driveway and knows there's so much more out there and wants to go see it. But mom's like, nope, you stay right here at the driveway. So then when dad comes home or mom's not around, then you can go to the corner and back on your bike, and they look at you like, I can go past the driveway? Yes, you can go past the driveway. I'm going to let you go.
Mom know?
I'm going to let you go to the end of the block on the corner. You'll still be able to see me. I can see you. And then come back. And so you give them that sense of adventure, and you build that trust that they're going to only go to the corner and then they're going to come back. And someday they ask if they can go around the block, and you can't see them, and mom panics and freaks out and wants to know where they are and all of that, and you look to her and say they went for a ride around the block. And then you pick up your teeth off the floor because she tried to knock you out for doing that. But anyway.
Well, I just think that God is so good because He gives you life in stages.
Right.
If we did not have that life in stages, we would go crazy. Moms would go crazy all at one time.
Yeah.
I would have gone crazy all at one time because there's only so much that
Right.
is good just for that little bit of time.
Right. You know, and you mentioned, family time's a priority. Absolutely, it's a priority now, and I think it's very different now. It was always mentally a priority, something that we wanted to do, we meant to do. But quite honestly, early on, you're struggling just to be in a position to afford to live. And so for me, I said I didn't go to college, so I didn't have a college degree. I think when we married, I was working for a carpenter contractor, and I was making $7 an hour at the time as a carpenter's laborer, and didn't learn until the end of the first year that there were no taxes being taken out, and I was going to get a 1099, and therefore I had to pay all these taxes on top of this. So I wasn't getting paid $7 an hour. I was basically getting paid $4 an hour, and didn't realize that. And so when you start out backwards financially, you're chasing that. So I was working, 6 days a week. I'd work with the contractor 5-6 days a week if possible, and then I was doing side work. And so you start doing that, and sometimes you lose sight of the need for the time there, right? So I could say I can look back now and see years where the boys were younger, where I wasn't there as much as I would have liked to have been because I felt the need to work. And like provision at that time was my expression of love. Not that I didn't want to do more, but we were just forced into a situation.
Yeah, I think a lot of dads feel that way. They feel like they're providing, what more can they do? But I think sometimes spending time is...
Right.
You did that, though. You did that. That was a priority for you, and the boys know that, and even to this day, because one of our things was always, we need to eat dinner together every single night. And as they grew up, we still held to that, and
And sometimes they would wait, and I'd say, why did you wait? You should have eaten.
Right.
I mean, everybody's
Right.
hungry.
No.
I'm 2 hours later than normal.
Yeah.
Why haven't you eaten? And it would be because everybody wanted to wait till you got home. And
Yeah.
that still happens at times.
Mhm.
But, you know, the whole time thing. So this is a story that sticks out in my mind. So again, I shared that I was a carpenter. We had this tree in our backyard. My boys were young. We had this tree in the backyard, and I had come across a bunch of just fantastic timbers and lumber and stuff from a warehouse job that I was going to be able to bring home and put to use. And I had this vision of cutting down the tree in the backyard and leaving the stump 10 feet tall and building this huge clubhouse on top of the tree with a swing set, a slide, and all of that stuff. And so I did that, but that became like, I was so zeroed in on, I'm gonna build this thing and the kids are gonna love it, they're gonna get years and years to play on this thing. And I can remember on one weekend in particular, working on this and really pushing, wanting to build this and get it done. And our oldest, Alex, was playing in the yard and stuff, and he had come over to me and said, Dad, can you play catch? And I said, no, I can't play catch. I'm trying to get your clubhouse done. Let me keep working on this. I don't have much time left to get it done. I want to get it done for you. So, no, I can't play catch. And it didn't hit me until later because I thought, you know, if I'd have just played catch with him, probably for 10 minutes,
Yeah.
15 minutes, he would have been happy. He probably would have got bored with it and been on to the next thing. But I look back on that and think, I thought I was building something for my kids that they would get all this enjoyment out of. And all he wanted was the time. He could care less about the clubhouse. Not that they did. They got plenty of use out of the clubhouse and loved it. But at that time, he wasn't focused on what I was building for him. He was more interested in the time. So that's something that sticks with me, and I think about that.
Yeah.
Should have taken that break to
Well,
spend the time as opposed to
that's all
the
part
object.
of us being older now and realizing that, yeah, we should have taken the time, taken 5 minutes, taken 10 minutes to play cars, to stop and play Barbies, to
Not with the boys. No Barbies.
with the boys, with our daughter.
Right.
Just take that time and do whatever it is that they were asking you to do, because that time you can't ever get it back.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, you can dwell on that, or you can, I always tell them, okay, you have today. Let's do it today.
Sure.
So,
Well, it was interesting. So, you know, and kids are different. Kids are very different. So Alex was the one, Alex the older, 24 now, back then wanted to play catch, very much into sports. Constantly wanting to play something, football, baseball, basketball, you know, soccer, things like that, ride the skateboard, ride his bicycle, all these different things. And Ethan, because Alex was doing that, we signed Alex up for baseball, so we signed Ethan up for baseball, thinking, you know, they'll play baseball. and Ethan was out in the middle of the baseball field, and you could hear him
yeah.
like he was having a lightsaber fight, like a Star Wars fight in the middle of the outfield on his own with his back to the ball game and could care less about it. And
It
I'm
was
thinking,
his stage.
this kid needs to get his head out of the clouds. That ball's going to get hit to him. But Ethan was performing from day one. He would stand on the stoop of the fireplace. We've got pictures upon pictures of him in a diaper standing on the fireplace stoop, and he would be saying something that we had no idea what he was saying, but he was giving a dissertation or a speech about something and acting things out, and he would go get hats and all kinds of props and stuff.
Basket on his head one time.
Yeah, right. And so they were very different, and as much as we recognized it early on, we still kind of signed them up for the same things, because if we're going to baseball for Alex, we might as well sign up Ethan and have him go to baseball as well.
Yeah.
And while Ethan participated, he never really excelled at the sports things that he did.
That wasn't his thing.
It was not his thing. It's still not his thing.
No.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So can you talk about how to find a right passion or call, or how you want to call it, talent, gift in our children?
I think if you give it time, it comes out on their own.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I
but
don't-
I think you have to be open, though, to what it is that they like. Because sometimes, we could be we put Ethan in soccer, and that wasn't necessarily what he wanted to do, but it was convenient for us. But I think you really have to see what their passions are. What is their God-given gift?
Yeah.
And then you build on that.
Yeah. And sometimes, even though you see it, you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Right? it's easy when a kid wants to play any kind of sport, ball, and do something, that's easy. But when your kid's out in the backyard role playing with sticks and helmets and shields, and you just think he's just a goofy kid playing in the backyard, you don't look at that and say, man, we've got an actor on our hands, or a director. I can't tell you the amount of times we would find Ethan in the driveway with several kids from the neighborhood costumed up, and Ethan would be saying, okay, now you're going to do this and you're going to say this, and no, I said this, so you're going to say this. And we just thought it was all this role playing and funny, and people would comment about the kid's going to be an actor someday, and we'd be like, yeah, an actor, great, that puts food on the table. And so I didn't think much of it, but the gifting was there, and it wasn't because he was exposed to it with us.
No.
But that was just...
That's like our daughter. We just found out that she's a little songbird, and we didn't know. She's 14 years old, and we just found out she actually could sing.
Yeah, and we were talking a lot about the boys at this point, just because we're talking early on in life.
Yeah.
And so the boys took up, the first, Alex was 10, Ethan was 8 when Laura Lynn was born. So we've got 8 to 10 years of stuff with the boys before Laura even entered the picture. And so we're kind of covering
Like
the
two
early
families.
basis of the family.
Yeah.
Almost 2 families to some degree. But you mentioned this with Laura about the singing thing and not knowing it. And again, dads, I think my first reaction is never my best reaction. And I just remember when they wanted to do voice lessons, I thought, we don't even know if this girl can sing. I don't hear her sing. I don't hear her sing in the shower. I don't hear her sing in the room. I don't think I've ever heard her sing. And they want to do voice lessons, so fine, we'll just go and we'll spend this money. And so anyway, we do the voice lessons, and of course, week after week, the voice coach would come out and tell us how lovely Laura's voice was, how fantastic she could sing. And the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, you're just going to keep telling me that so I can keep paying you. I'm not hearing this girl sing. And so after a few weeks or maybe months, I think it may have been, we were invited back to hear Laura Lynn sing. And it blew us away.
I cried.
Just amazing. And I liken it to years prior to this, long prior to this. Laura Lynn was into gymnastics and was practicing in the front yard and hurt her foot, and I thought, you're fine, you'll get over it, it's not that bad. And days later she's still telling me how much her foot hurt, and she's always accused of being a little drama queen. Everything was a little exaggerated, and so I didn't think much of it until the gym teacher called and told me that she really thought I should get it checked out. So Laura Lynn got an x-ray done, and sure enough, her foot was broke. And her tough dad kept saying, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. So when I heard she can sing, she could sing, again, not my best reaction. I was in a state of denial until I could hear it for myself, just like I was in a state of denial about her foot until I saw the x-ray for myself. A little storytelling. I feel like we shared kind of early on our relationship, our background. We've shared a little bit about the boys and the different attributes of the boys and starting a family with them. And then we kind of fast forwarded 10 years, right, to the introduction of Laura Lynn into our family. And so I think the next time we talk, we can kind of pick up from there, talk about the introduction of a newborn baby girl into a family that has an 8 and 10-year-old boy, and how that dynamic worked coming into the family and starting off. And then really just kind of continue on, I guess, with our story. And I think as you hear more of our story, we'll have opportunities to share things that we've learned along the way.
Sure.
But for the most part, you'll hear us just share.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we're not perfect. We don't have all the answers. We learned the hard way. We have had to go back to our kids and apologize and say that we're sorry. And that's a big thing. That's a big thing that we believe in. That and kids react to that. So I think that is something that is big in our family. We don't have all the answers, and we're still growing.
Right.
But there's definitely some things we could not have done without.
Right. I even think back, I mean, again, there's so many different topics that we could talk about, from the birth of a son to the age of 13 and then beyond. There's so much to talk about. The topic of, do you spank your sons or not? And if you do spank them, how do you spank them? How do you teach them grace? How do you teach them forgiveness? All of those things.
And then it's just hard because you have your way as a man.
Right.
The dads have to do it their way, and then as a mom, I think at that point that was one of our conflicts, was the mom's point of view and the dad's point of view. Was always like this, especially at that becoming a young boy age. So
Right.
how did we make that work?
Right. So, yeah, I don't know if there'll be opportunity to kind of share on those specific topics or not, because at the moment, this is new to us and we're just sharing our life. If there's questions to be asked, we'll address the questions and how we handled things, right? Yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, when you got married, how the family started, how
Walk
do you
silently, because everything will be
When
recorded.
did you get saved? Who we are, a little bit of our background story,
Yes.
like our background of us,
Yeah, of who we are.
how we met.
Well, because a lot of who we grew up and how we grew up with our parent, that's how you parent. That's off.
Oh yeah, that's fine. That's
Okay.
fine.
It's still recording?
No. You don't have to. Just be yourself. Not too much. I hate those kids. All right.
So we just start off wherever we want, and look at this
Oh,
camera,
look at this.
not this camera.
Oh,
You don't want us to every now and then do a quick,
No, I don't want
look
you.
at that camera. No,
Yeah.
don't want to do a Zoolander pose.
No. Go on. Hey guys, my name is Jeff.
I just had it in my head how I was going to start to. We'll start now. We'll
Tell a
just
joke?
we won't. No.